the shit has hit the fan and you don't have your vehicle, you don't have your bike, your acoustic bike, your motorcycle, whatever it is, what do? You're on the hoof, that's what's up. And your first order of business is to get off the road. Now in the last video, I did 42 miles on an e-bike. And I wanna up the game a little bit. Let's say that we are in unfriendly territory and we're nowhere near home right now. We're actually going to have to stealth camp. And you may be saying, I don't need to stealth camp. I'm literally going to get home by forcing myself to do it. You're strong-willed and you're gonna make it happen. Well, I think Jason proved with his 40-mile walk challenge with one water bottle that that's a lot harder than you think it is. And if you've already been pedaling it like I was, you're going to be tired and you're gonna crash. I don't care how strong you think you are. When you add real stress to the scenario, you're gonna crash and you're gonna crash hard. You have to pace yourself. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you here. Having something like an e-bike, that's a great advantage to have. It got us 42 miles. Now, we're on the hoof, we're on the run, but the very first rule of doing this is you can't get caught. And that means that you're gonna have to start thinking like an apex predator. You've got to be aware of threat targets that are out there and you've got to be smarter than them. And what that means is strategic avoidance. We do not want to run into anybody if we can help it. Our main goal is to de-ass the area that is compromised to get to a position of safety that also has resources, which includes people. Being light, fast, and mobile is the name of the game here. The very first thing that people do in the military when they're bugging out is they drop all non-essential gear. Oh man, I just can't help myself. Look at these resources. Hunters know what that is. Can't help myself. Another thing is they are taking a known route, and understand that that route is not a direct route. And if they have to change course, they can do that as well. You need to have multiple routes to get to your destination, and they should never be direct. So let's do a quick sit rep. Let's say that we did 42 miles on our bike, our vehicle, our acoustic bike, whatever it is that you've got. You had to abandon your vehicle. All right, you understand that you are going to have to camp out somewhere. So we're gonna be doing some stealth camping, and what I wanna do is I wanna go over several different possible choices that you might run into, and we're gonna talk about each one before we decide where we're gonna camp. It's really imperative, and I can't stress it enough, you have to be forward thinking when you're doing stuff like we're doing right now. You need to be thinking 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. So let's explore our area and let's see what kind of options we've got. All right, here's possibility number one. We've got an abandoned farmhouse. Now, the reality of that scenario is if you got that close to the house without glassing it from a safe distance prior to getting there, you're dead already. And you may be saying, but Jay, resources, shelter, water, fire, food, I've got gaps in my kit. That's the perfect place to get them. Yeah, you're right. That's what everybody else is thinking too. In professional man tracking, we call that a POI, or a point of interest. That means that it is something that is going to draw people. If you get that close to a structure, I mean, just think, there could be people that are already inside of it. And the last thing that you want to do is get shot. Old abandoned homes like that are going to be really tempting, but you have to have enough discipline to just say no. Now, I'm not saying that places like this couldn't be an excellent resource. I'm just saying you have to be smart about how you go about getting to them. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of patience. Now, I do not know how many times I've said it in videos before, but you need to figure out what the animals in your area are doing. And here's a really good example right here. Here's where a hog was pooping on the run, and there's this trail right there going into that thick brush. And that is a clue. In order to avoid humans, oh look, in order to avoid, oh man, check this out. Deer as well, that's another clue. But in order to avoid humans, All hunters know that if you want to get the big one, you have to go places humans don't want to go. And that's really what should be on your mind when it comes to stealth camping. Now here's another resource that I want to point out. You can see somebody has cleared an area and they have dropped everything right here. And under normal conditions, this would be awesome because you have stuff that you could easily start a fire with, especially if you don't have the tools that you need. Okay, but the reality of this situation is we do not want to start a fire if we don't have to, period. That is the very last thing that we should do right now. Starting a fire is only going to telegraph where you are. I know people are constantly saying, oh, well, you could just start a Dakota fire pit. You don't have to have a long fire or an upside down fire or a teepee or a log cabin or whatever. Okay, seriously, when was the last time that you did 15 to 20 Dakota fire pits? I mean, how long did it take you to, number one, build it? Number two, to find all the resources that you need to have a fire. And number three, if you had to put it out, how fast can you put that out and then make it so that no one can tell that you were actually there? When it comes to a real life bug out scenario, fire is literally going to be a last resort. Like you had to purify your water or you had to have it stay warm to thermoregulate. You don't want to just start a fire whenever and wherever. That is not what you want to do, or you're going to give your position away. Now, I've talked a lot about possum mentality and taking advantage of whatever resources you have, and right there is a really good one. That's a walnut tree, and if you look down on the ground right here, you'll start to see the husks. Okay, inside of these husks laying on the ground, obviously you have the walnut, but from a medical standpoint, you also have iodine. And if you were trying to trap fish, it is illegal, but you probably should look into what juglone does to fish, because in a survival scenario, that would be very helpful. And since we're bringing up resources, look what I have found. Now, what that means to you is that we are probably, most likely, close to water. Now, you may go into an area like this and say, oh my God, jackpot. I hit the jackpot. It's a bamboo forest. Golly, there's spider webs everywhere. But you start to go into this bamboo forest and you think to yourself, oh my God, look at all of these resources that I have. I've got material that I can build with. I can make weapons. I mean, bamboo, just think of all the things that you can do with bamboo. But this is also problematic. Let's put on our thinking caps for a minute and think, why would this be a bad area to get in? The biggest answer is yes, it's going to be a point of interest. But number two, you don't want to stay in close proximity to water. Everything in life is attracted to water. That means predators, and that doesn't just mean the big predators, that means the small predators as well. Think about mosquitoes, no-see-ums, etc. They will tear you up if you stay in a forest like this. So get whatever resources you need and get out of there. And another little tip for you, if you're in an area that has a ton of spider webs, then understand that means there's a lot of insects there as well. All right, I have come to the edge of this bamboo forest, and what I can tell you is that in this general vicinity right here, I'm counting them right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 abandoned tool sheds, barns, pole barns, etc., just in this little area right here. Now, this obviously is not a working farm. And yes, there are resources there, but right now, I want to take the time to explain to you, to show you, you have got to have the discipline to glass all of these structures. And I don't mean for just 10 minutes. I mean for like an hour or more, to make sure that these buildings are safe to approach. And I'm going to take it even a step further. If you can 100% avoid these places, then you need to do that. Unless it is a life or death scenario, I wouldn't go towards them. the key is to be prepared. I cannot stress that enough. Now, in your travels, you're gonna come across trail systems like this. This is obviously a highly traveled trail system, and you do not wanna go down those trails. The reason for that is because it is a perfect track trap for a tracker. So we wanna get off the trail and we wanna blaze our own trail, but you wanna be very careful that you're not breaking a bunch of branches. You don't want to be snapping a bunch of down limbs, etc. And you've got to be kind of aware of how you're walking. You want to walk heel to toe, heel to toe, heel to toe, and just take things nice and slow. Now you can use that as what we call a rail, a handrail. You could use that trail because we know that the trail is going somewhere that's going to be of interest to us. But understand, once again, that's a POI as well. That is something that humans are going to be attracted to because it's easy for us to get through. You don't want to take the road that is highly traveled. You want to go the road that is less traveled. As I was walking through the woods, I glassed this from the tree line, and this right here is evidence of people, right? What you're also going to notice is stumps that are turned over, resources that are just laying around, etc. Now, this could be good news and that could be bad news as well. I know no one has used this fire pit in a while. It's just more than obvious. You are out in the open, which, you know, let's do risk versus reward. You know, is it smart for us to go ahead and start a fire here? We might be able to boil our water, and we know that we're not camping here, right? This is not a safe place for us to camp, but there are plenty of resources. And once we leave, I mean, this just looks like a place where humans were gonna be. It's like what someone would expect to find out here. And so this might potentially be a good place for you to go ahead and boil your water or cook your food and then get out of here as fast as you can. It's really all just based on the scenario, the environment, and what you're doing, you know, but it's definitely something that you could think about. One thing that I've noticed in this area right here is a very mature cedar, and for us, that is a gold mine because we can pull these outer strips of bark off of this tree, and we have material which we could make a bird's nest with and potentially start a fire later if we needed to. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put down the phone and I'm gonna start grabbing up a bunch of this stuff to take with me because I don't wanna pass up a resource like this. It's just too good of one to pass up. We might need to start a fire later, so possum mentality, let's grab as much of this as we can. I'm gonna set down the camera and I'm gonna show you a neat little technique on how you can grab a bunch of this really fast. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the backside of my machete and I'm gonna go ahead and start scraping this tree. And you'll notice in literally a matter of seconds, what I'm doing is I'm scraping off the outer bark that is nice and dry. And it only takes, you know, literally like under a minute, and you can grab up enough material to make yourself a bird's nest. As you can see, I mean, just in a matter of seconds, look what we got off of that tree. And that right there, I mean, that's an excellent resource. We can put it into our pocket, and when we need it, we've got it. Now, I gotta say, this is one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen out in the middle of the woods. This is crazy. Check this out. Talk about a resource. It looks to me like it's a shower. This thing actually has heat. I want to see if it works. Gotta be there's a valve right there. I have never found this in the middle of the woods. This is definitely a campground. Oh, wait a minute. Well, that's stuck in the tree, but it's not attached to anything. Oh, here we go. Right here. So it looks like, oh, it's not even hooked up. And it also, that's where the heat comes from. There's your propane. But I wonder if we turn this knob right here and then we open this, well, that would have been an awesome source. That's too bad. That would have been an awesome source for us to get some water from. But I think we could follow the line and we could probably find the source of it. But Man, that's just not something you see every day in the woods. And I don't want to follow that line and run into someone's house. Man, that would have been awesome. But hey, you know, keep your head on a swivel. You never know what you're gonna find. And yeah, we wanted to get away from that as quickly as possible, but you never know what you're gonna run across when you get in the woods. Check this out. How cool is this? Off in the middle of the woods, right next to a refrigerator, an old refrigerator. And you can tell people have shot it up over the years, but you know, I just wonder how long has that been here in the woods? I mean, how cool is that, right? I'll tell y'all a little trick. My grandfather at our tree farm, something that he used to do was he would strategically take appliances, old appliances, and he would place them in certain places. So if you were at the refrigerator, for example, you knew you were in the very center of the property. If you found the oven, you knew you were on the western side of the property. If you found the washing machine or the dryer, etc., you knew exactly where you were on the property. So that's, you know, some old school wisdom right there, something they used to do back in the old days. You know, take trash and make markers with it so that you knew where you were on your property. Okay, now we're talking. I have found a spot that I think is excellent. And if you're a hunter, then you know exactly why I've chosen this place. If you look behind me over here, you'll notice a lot of open hardwoods. And then if we go ahead and turn the camera and we look into here, you'll start to see all of this privet, and it starts to get thicker and thicker and thicker. This right here is a staging area for animals, like for deer, for example. And the reason that they come here is because it is a strategic good place for them to be. Number one, they have cover, right? Number two, they have lots of egress here, right? If somebody is coming from in front of us, they're probably going to be coming from an open field, because I can see over there that the tree line opens up further back about 150 yards. It looks like that is an open field. And then behind me is nothing but open hardwoods. And this is the kind of place that a deer would go to stage. When it gets dark, they'll come out of this staging area and they'll go and they'll feed off in the field. And this is a perfect place for us. So we're gonna go ahead and walk in here and see if we can't find like some beds, for example, because I know there's gonna be spots in here that would be good for us, because people hate walking through this stuff. One way to navigate through all of this nasty stuff is to find a deer trail. And you can see right here, this is where the deer have trodden down a path inside of all of this thick stuff. Oh, another spider web. God, hate spider webs. Ooh, that's a big one too. Look at that dude. Because I know this is gonna open up, and it does. Check this out right here. This is where they're going in, right here. And it may take you a second to get in here. And right inside of the middle of all of this privet is an open spot. Like we could literally camp right here. And I'm looking around because, you know, this is an area where they're running around in here. They've trotted down a good bit. They're scat here. That means they're probably eating over there in those hardwoods. There's probably still acorns on the ground at this point, but this is the kind of spot that you would want to look for right here. And all we had to do was follow the animals and find a good spot. And here's the evidence that I was talking about. Here's a rub where a buck has been rubbing this tree. This is definitely a staging area. This is definitely a place that they would go before they get off into that field. So this is what we're looking for. I have found a spot that I'm really happy with. Okay, now it is not quite time for us to go to bed yet, so I'm gonna walk out of all this privet and I'm gonna find a place where we can eat. Because one thing you don't wanna do is you don't wanna eat where you're gonna sleep. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, well, Jay, that area that you're in is probably snaky, and you're right. It definitely is a place where snakes would be, but it's supposed to get down into the 20s. this week at night, I'm not really worried about snakes at this point. And as with anything, you've got to ask yourself, risk versus reward. And I'm sorry, but I am distracted again. Squirrel, look, fresh rub on a tree. And I just found another scrape. Oh man. Sorry, I just can't help myself. I'm supposed to be hunting right now, not making videos for y'all. I found a spot that would be a really good place for us to get some grub, and I'm gonna show you why. We're gonna go down right now into this gully. This probably was a fire break or a seasonal creek at some point. If you look down through there, all right, here is my head. Okay, and we literally just dropped down approximately 5 feet. All right, now, as far as being a predator goes, okay, when you are looking for your prey, you're looking for a certain height on your prey. Now, this gives us a tactical advantage by being in this gully. Number one, we can look out and we can see somebody coming at us from just about every single direction. And we'll also be able to hear them coming from a long way away. Now, animals will use these gullies like this, these washouts, these old Forest Service roads, these old seasonal creeks or whatever, because it changes their height. It gives them cover as they're running through it. And this is the perfect example of that. And so this is where we're gonna grab something to eat. And just to prove my point, here's a track trap down in the bottom of it. And I don't know if y'all can see it really well, but there are deer tracks everywhere right here, which means they are 100% using this. So we're gonna take advantage of this. Okay, and now that we have found a position of safety, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into our bag, we're gonna get out what we need, and then we're gonna put everything back in the bag as fast as we can. This is something that you have to be incredibly disciplined on. All right, so we're hungry. Let's go ahead and grab one of our MREs, and we're gonna grab out of it what we want, and then we're gonna throw everything back in there. And this one's actually a good one. The beef patty jalapeno pepper jack. Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so right off the top, M&Ms. We can throw those in our pocket. We can graze, eat those on the run. And then we've got some bread and, oh, cheese spread with bacon. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and make an executive decision. This is what we're gonna eat right here. Here's our heater. We could go ahead and heat up this entree while we're here and eat. But the thing is, I'm trying to ration out the food, right? I don't wanna eat everything in this MRE. I wanna graze on it for as long as I possibly can. So let's see what else we have. We've got tortillas, cherry cobbler. That's a new one on me. There's our jalapeno steak patty, which is pretty good. Our condiments, etc. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna eat the bread and I'm gonna eat the cheese spread with the bacon right here because I feel safe. That'll get something, you know, in our stomachs that'll make us feel a little bit better, give us a little boost. And, you know, we can eat those M&Ms while we're walking around. Now, one thing that's really important is to stay disciplined. All right, so we're not going to use any of this stuff. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take it, we're gonna put it back in our bag, and then we're gonna shove it back into our pack. It's also important to save this trash, right? Because these are containers, right? If we needed to carry resources, you know, it could be water, all right? It could be food. It could be, you know, fire starting material, whatever the case may be. We want to save this stuff, all right? This is a plastic bag that will hold probably 2 liters of water in it. I mean, that's a resource you don't want to throw away. Plus, you don't want to leave anything out here that a tracker could find, right? But the biggest thing, the reason that I'm putting all this back in my bag right now is because you have to stay disciplined, all right? If we identify a threat target out there, then we have to literally be able to get out of here like that. So this is definitely not the time to be lazy. And we're gonna be ready to go at a moment's notice. Oh boy, good old MRE. Doesn't that look tasty? Now once again, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm taking this package because I've used it. I'm going to put it in my pocket. I'm not putting it back in my bag. You don't want little critters chewing into your bag at night. Field mice, chipmunks, squirrels, raccoons, whatever. They will take and ruin your pack like that. Believe me, that will make you so mad. Take it from me. I've had it happen before. My grandfather used to always warn me about that, and sure enough, when I was a young kid, I came back to my bag being ruined. I promise you, that's a lesson that I learned the hard way when I was young. So make sure you don't put your used packages back into your backpack, all right? Make sure that when you're done, either you bury them or you find an appropriate container for it. And what I mean by that is, you know, maybe on your travels you pass by a dumpster, for example. Okay, you can throw your trash into a dumpster. Okay, if you're in the woods, you can strategically bury it somewhere and make sure that it's buried good enough that, you know, an animal isn't going to dig it up, or a person is going to be able to tell, okay, somebody just buried their trash right there. Oh, it's like baby's first poo. God's neat. Let's eat. You know what? That's pretty awesome. I mean, it may be because I'm hungry, but yeah, I'm honey smack digging. All right, I've got to say, that was actually really good. It actually lifted my spirits. I've got something in my stomach. I feel a little bit better, and I feel good about it overall. It actually tasted really good. So I'm happy about that. Now, I want to point out, too, that I've picked up all the trash, and I've also taken the time to make it look like we haven't been here, right? That's really important. All right, so you need to take the time to spread out the leaf debris, etc. Make it sure that your tracks and all that are covered up, etc. All right, low profile is the name of the game here. Before we get back to the place where we're actually going to camp, I want to do an exercise with y'all. We're always telling y'all, you know, you need to train, right? Okay, well, I'm running a different kit than I normally run. And so what I want to do is I want to see, okay, if I get my improvised sleep system out, and let's say I identify a threat target, I hear something off in the distance, whatever, can I get my sleep system back into my bag in under 30 seconds? When you're watching YouTube, people will build these elaborate shelters. That is something that I typically try to caution against, okay? Light, fast, and mobile, right? If you are sleeping in your shelter at night and you identify a threat target, or you hear something off in the distance, you literally need to be able to exit that camp in under 30 seconds. That doesn't give you a whole lot of options, so it's always best to be prepared. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna test myself. Like, can I do that with this kit that I got from the military depot? Dang it, there's another rub and another scrape. I guess I do have a 10, so, and I have my license. Maybe, just maybe. All right, so if you watched the last video, you would see what I had. I have an improvised sleep system. I have this mat that I cut 4 inches off of either side and 3 feet off of the bottom, so that's my mat. I've also got a Marpat tarp, and then I have a poncho liner. So let's go ahead and put it together. I opened up the tarp, and lo and behold, I found a hole. So we're gonna take some of our Gorilla Tape and go ahead and fix that first. All right, all I did was put one patch on the backside, and now I'm going to put another patch on the other side. Rub that down really good. Make sure that it's sticking, and there we go. We've got it fixed on both sides. Okay, now there's my pad, and it's just big enough to fit my core. And then here's the poncho liner, and the idea is you take this and we're gonna pull it over. So the pad is just underneath here. And when we get in, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this other side and we're gonna make an improvised sleeping bag. Now let's pull down that bottom corner. And there we go. There's you an improvised sleeping bag. This even has buttons on it that we can snap together. I want to mention the fact that I'm going to be wearing all of my extra clothes at night to give myself extra room in the bag, because I want to see, you know, if I was sleeping and I identified a threat target, could I get out? So that's the point of this exercise. So let's see if I can do it. Okay, one of you guys is going to have to time me. Let's just see what happens. I don't know if it's gonna work or not. Let's see if I can make it work. Come on. All right, so I reviewed the footage and I definitely didn't get it in 30 seconds, so let's try again. All right, here we go. Take 2, go. Oh, shit. Come on. All right, so even with a couple fumbles, I was able to get it in approximately 30 seconds, and that's the kind of time that you're actually looking for. If you had a tarp or a tent or a hammock or anything else, you're not gonna be able to make that kind of time. So it's something to think about. I'm not saying that that is the standard. I'm just saying that that is a time that you should shoot for should you have to get out of Dodge fast. Now, if you can't do it, you're gonna have to make decisions on what you're gonna leave behind. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to leave behind? Because if you think about it, you can cross that bridge when you get there. Shelter, water, fire, food. You can make those things happen. You'll have to rely on your skill. But the point I'm trying to make is that your life is worth more than that gear. Now, if you rely on the gear, you know, can you get out of there in a reasonable amount of time and still be able to hold on to those resources? Remember, if you can't defend and hold your resources, they're worthless. Back into the privet we go. Okay, so I went ahead and set up the bedroll, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back off in the privet and we're gonna see if we can see the bedroll from a distance. Okay, so we're in the middle over there, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take y'all around this privet hedge and we're gonna see if we can see the bedroll in the middle there. So let's just go ahead and take a look. I don't think it's gonna be that obvious. Now, we're not gonna do a whole complete 360 around the whole thing, but I'm thinking that we're solid. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I mean, I wouldn't notice it right off of the bat for sure. So yeah, let's get back to our bed, go ahead and get tucked in. We're about to lose filming light, and when I check the forecast, it's supposed to get down to 26 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. So let's go ahead and go back in and go ahead and get set up. All right, let's see if we can see it off in the distance as we get closer to it. If you look real close, there it is right there. And as you can see, it's like super thick around us here. So I don't think that there's gonna be any issues. I mean, you can see it through this small gap right there, but that's us. And before I get in my bed, I put on the base layers I went ahead and put my shamag around my neck. I've got on my beanie. I've also got my gloves. They're in my pocket. And if things get really bad tonight, I do have an emergency blanket that I could employ with this as well. The bed is actually on a bunch of grass where I've seen, beds where deer were laying. So I think we're gonna be okay. Let's just go ahead and get in and see how we are. And additionally, I also have the 2 hoods that I can use in conjunction with the beanie. And I can tell you, I'm in it right now and I'm actually a little bit warm. Like I think I could start off just like this and I'll be just fine. But I think the important thing is you want to get ahead of it. You don't want to be behind it. We're about to lose filming light, so I'll see y'all in the morning.
Okay, the truth is, this sucks. I've got to pee for at least 20 minutes. Oh my God, I'm gonna pee in my pants. Gotta do some push-ups. Gotta pee first. Oh my God.
All right, I've had a little bit of time to recover. It's in the afternoon right now, to be honest with you. When I woke up in the morning, I was just burnt. Let's talk about what I had to do last night. Number one, when it gets really, really cold, your body is going to try to get rid of everything that it can so it has less to heat. And that's why you have to pee like a gallon every time that you have to get up and go to the bathroom. Now, a lot of people try to hold on to that. They think that they're gonna stay warmer if they hold on to the pee, and that's just not true. Like, you need to get up, you need to go out there, and you need to relieve yourself. And understand if it gets down that cold, then you're gonna have to go multiple times as well, and that comes as an inconvenience. Additionally, when you're up, you're gonna have to do other things as well. Like I was doing push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks, just to get my blood flow going again before I would get back into the ranger role. The reality of a scenario like that is that you're probably gonna only sleep for literally like 15, 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes at the most, before you literally have to get up and repeat that process. A lot of people are gonna be saying, well, why didn't you cut down a bunch of boughs and why didn't you make yourself a nice debris bed and all of that? Well, for that particular exercise, I'm a tracker. I would have found all of that if that's what we had to do. The truth is that you would have to get all of your leaves and your boughs from another location, transport them to where you're actually camping at so that you don't get detected. Now, something Jason and I talk about a good bit is, you can be comfortable on your way to camp and then be uncomfortable when you get to the camp, and vice versa as well. You could be really uncomfortable on the way to the camp and have to deal with all the nuances of that, and then be very comfortable at night. So it's kind of like a balancing act. You have to balance out your kit with your skills and what's available, what resources do I have, what is the situation. And there's also the X factor that you have to worry about, the things that you don't plan for that happen. And can you be flexible and adaptable in the field when that happens? When I went to the military depot, I had a plan, but that plan just didn't work because the resources were not available to me. Part of what I wanted to demonstrate was, okay, this is what you're gonna have to do if you have this kind of kit. Understand that kit was not perfect by any means. What I really wanted to do was I wanted a Gore-Tex bivvy and I wanted a patrol bag, and I was gonna modify a mat to go inside of that. And that would have been the most ideal situation that I could have hoped for and still not had to carry a lot of weight. Ironically, it got really cold when I got up and got moving, and I drank a ton of water because I was so thirsty, and I had to mix in electrolytes as well to help me out. But when I finally ended up talking to somebody, they told me that the low actually got down to 28 that night. When I was walking through the grass, it was like crunching ice when I went through the field. And everything is just so much louder when it gets that cold. It's like the sound, it just reverberates through the woods. And these are things that I had to take into consideration. If this was the real deal, I would have to, account for that in whatever my plan is gonna be. The end result of this experiment, yes, I had what I needed, but the truth is when I got to my camping spot, that was when it got really hard. And waking up the next morning, you're depleted. It's hard on you physically, it's hard on you mentally, it's hard on you emotionally. What we're trying to encourage you to do is understand what your limits are. You're never going to know what those limits are until you actually go out there and train on the edge of those limits. Now, obviously, you want to have safety in mind as well. I did have a backup plan should things go south while I was doing this. Understand, I was very uncomfortable, and yes, I wanted to go back to the vehicle. I wanted to go get into the rest of the stuff that I brought with me, but I just, went ahead and worked through it. You need to learn how to become uncomfortable and what that's like to have to deal with that. What I do hope that you gain from this experiment that we did here is maybe you picked up some points on the critical thinking aspect of this. Like, what would I have to do? Because you probably, more than likely, don't live in the exact type of area that I live in. You would have to apply the principles of what you learned in the video to your particular scenario. And we also want to encourage you to train with stuff that you're not comfortable using. It's real easy for me to put a kit together that I know is going to work, or everything is going to be, based on my preferences. But every now and then I like to shake things up, and I like to go retrain with stuff that I haven't put my hands on in a while. Now, there are a lot of talking points in the video, but I'm afraid if I keep filming, then it's just going to be so long. So I'm trying to do you a favor. Let's get in the comment section. We can talk about this stuff. If you leave a comment, then I promise you I will try my hardest to answer it to the best of my ability. If I don't have the answer, I know people that do have the answers. So if you're honey smack digging, yes, get in the comment section. Leave me a snide remark. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and until next time, fuel those fires.